Let's talk about how to answer situational questions. Now, situational questions are increasingly more common in video interviews. We first saw them with PwC, but we've seen them with Lloyds, with Deloitte, and with a host of other companies. A situational question is basically a question based around a situation that you could find yourself at work and how you would deal with that situation. Many of you who have done online or psychometric tests will be familiar with SJT ranking style questions, where you either do best worst or you do ranking of options 1 to 5. The difference is now is that you're answering out loud, and it's something that I find a lot of people have struggled with. So much so that about 2 years ago, I made a course which is completely based around answering SJTs called SJT Sorted, and that course is now included in a bundle down in the description below for interview success secrets. But today, I want to take a moment to explain how to answer these questions, some methods for thinking about it, which are abridged and summarized from that course. There is a framework for answering SJT questions which is super helpful, and it's a 4-step framework to go through. Step 1, all SJT questions are built around a competency, which is a particular skill that is being tested. So in terms of competency, there are 5 skills that I have come across which most SJT questions fall into. Number 1 is cognitive skills. This is about decision making, problem solving, or problems of strategy in terms of thinking what to do. Number 2 is personality, which is being flexible, adaptable, resilient, conscientious, or demonstrating independence. Number 3 is interpersonal skills, so social intelligence, effective communication, relationship building, and the ability to persuade others or to influence them. Number 4 is attitude, being open to criticism, orientated towards success, working under management, or organizational thinking in terms of working amongst a team. And lastly is leadership skills, which is encouraging development of others, teamwork, responsibility, encouraging innovation, maintaining authority, and managing resources, whether they be people, places, or things. Step 2 to think about with a situational question is what's the context? And after I go through the 6 steps, we're going to speak on an example. So number 1, who's involved? Number 2, what do they need? Who gets priority if there's more than one person? What are your responsibilities and obligations? And what is your position and the extent of your authority? And also, what's the wider context just in terms of real life? Now, I want to pause a moment before I go on to step 3 and 4 to choose an example, which I've used from my SJT Sorted course. You have been working on a client's project for some time now. The manager in charge of the project is giving a presentation to the client showing the results of your analysis, findings, and recommendations. While the manager is giving this presentation, you realise there is a mistake in one of the tables you have prepared. Nobody else notices. Who's involved? Well, you, your manager, and the client. What do they need? Your client needs the right information and your manager needs your support. Who gets priority if there was more than one person? Your manager. So why? Because you've spotted a mistake, but right now they're giving a presentation and it would potentially be quite damaging to them and also to the perception of your business. If you're son go, Steve, that table is wrong, mate. It's wrong. Sorry about that. Sorry, wrong table. Steve, no good. So you wouldn't want to blurt out in the middle of the meeting. You wouldn't want that to happen to you, right? But it's probably something that does need to address and potentially can be addressed afterwards, potentially. So what are your responsibilities and obligations? To do right by the client and to respect your manager and the company's hierarchy. Is the client always right? No. Is the client the most important thing? No. Actually, the business is the most important thing. And everybody makes mistakes, but there are right ways of going around how to correct those mistakes. So what's your position on authority? You're a graduate, right? You're not more senior than your manager. You're not even on equal terms. So the wider context is, for a general corporate role, you're trying to follow the hierarchy and deliver the best service. It's useful to think about this because often people won't kind of zoom out and think about the general context. So the response to this is, though I understand that there is a mistake in one of the tables, I would wait until the presentation is over. My manager would be standing in front of a client. It would be an important meeting, I'm sure, and my position as a graduate means I am there to observe. Also, I need to double check the information that I believe to be true, because this is something that is happening while a presentation is being given, and I may not be privy to all of the information. This is also something that can be corrected later on in an email or a phone call between my manager and the client. But to interrupt my manager during a presentation would not only be embarrassing, it could also potentially damage the relationship that we have with the client. So once the meeting has concluded and I'm traveling back to the office with my manager, this would be the time for me to bring it up and point out the mistake. Hopefully my manager would either be able to rectify the mistake or explain the reason why it isn't a mistake and that there's nothing serious involved, and then we would make sure that we have maintained a good relationship with the client. So step 3 and 4 in terms of situational questions is thinking, what's the best and worst response? What SJT questions are trying to deal with is what is the most effective, considered, and potentially altruistic responses that you can give. They're not passive, they're not negative, they're not irrelevant, selfish, hasty, or just careless. They are intelligent, and to a certain extent, which are just some ideas to think about, they are active over passive and they're conservative over risky. Big companies want to know that they are employing somebody who, yes, is smart and brilliant and super talented, but also can adhere to the hierarchy and can do what they're told. There is a time and a place for people to make these types of decisions or comments, and that will come with experience. Some other things to think about is always being positive or being negative, being effective over being logical, the hierarchy of obligation, which is always the organization, the client, the manager, and you. And how would you act in an ideal world if you were being as helpful and as thoughtful and as active as possible? Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Drop us a like, drop us a comment down below for other videos you'd like us to make, and see you next time. Bye.